episode. This is podcast episode number 97, actually, so I'm very excited. Almost close to 100, so three more to 100. So, like I said, I'm definitely excited. In this particular podcast episode, we're going to be reading, I'm going to be reading the chapter number 6, the first part, because it's like 30, almost 40 pages. So, I'm going to read about 15, 16 pages or so of that particular chapter. So, this is going to be part 1 of The Imagination, lesson number 6 in the book, The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill. For those on YouTube, you see me holding the book up. Of course, you all can see me. You can see me, see my jewelry today. Cute little jewelry. Like I got my little bracelet on too. So cute. But like I said, y'all can see me, but y'all can't see me over on the podcast. So there's going to be a link in the description on both YouTube and on over on the podcast episode, the social podcast on Spotify, the social worker coach. I'll put it that way. So like I said, definitely make sure that you, of course, follow that link to go to my YouTube channel to make sure that you're subscribing. And then, of course, on YouTube, you will see that same link. So make sure that you're getting your way on over to subscribe to my podcast as well. So, and make sure that whatever platform you listen to the podcast on, I think Apple Podcast was number 1 for me. So make sure that you will follow me on there. And, of course, like I said, comment, let me know where you're from. And I want to know whether you've read this book, too. So it's The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill. The Law of Success in 16 Lessons by Napoleon Hill. So, again, this is Tonetta. Like I said, your social worker coach. Like I said, I'm definitely getting on. I guess going to go ahead and start with this, y'all, with this chapter, with this lesson number 6, imagination. And like I said, this is part 1. So make sure that you look at the other 5 summaries. I know I put summaries for those. I didn't read the whole chapter, but I'm deciding to read word for word for these until I'm done with the book, just to let y'all know. So let's go ahead and get into it. Lesson 6, part 1, imagination. Imagination is the workshop of the human mind wherein old ideas and established facts may be reassembled into new combinations and put to new uses. The modern dictionary defines imagination as follows: the act of constructive intellect in grouping the materials of knowledge or thought into new, original, and rational systems. The constructive or creative faculty embracing poetic, artistic, philosophic, scientific, and ethological imagination. The picturing power of the mind, the formation of mental images, pictures, and mental representation of objects or ideas, particularly of objects of sense perception and of mathematical reasoning. Also, the reproduction and combination, usually with more or less irrational or abnormal modification of the images or ideas of memory or recall facts of experience. Imagination has been called the creative power of the soul, but this is somewhat abstract and goes more deeply into the meaning than is necessary from the viewpoint of a student of this course who wishes to use this course only as a means of attaining material or monetary advantages in life. Y'all, my sinuses drive me crazy this morning, so bear with me. If you have mastered and thoroughly understood the preceding lessons of this reading course, you know that the materials out of which you built your definite chief aim were assembled and combined in your imagination. You also know that self-confidence and initiative and leadership must be created in your imagination before they can become a reality. For it is in the workshop of your imagination that you will put the principle of autosuggestion into operation in creating these necessary qualities. This lesson on imagination might be called the hub of this reading course because every lesson of this course leads to this lesson and makes use of the principle of which it is based. Just as all the telephone wires lead to the exchange officer for their source of power. You will never have a definite purpose in life. You will never have self-confidence. You will never have initiative and leadership unless you first create these qualities in your imagination and see yourself in possession of them. It's all mental, y'all, when it comes to imagination. Just as the oak tree develops from the germ that lies in the acorn, and the bird develops from the germ that lies asleep in the egg, so will your material achievements grow out of the organized plans that you create in your imagination. First come thought, then organization of that thought into plans and ideas, then transformation of those plans into reality. The beginning, as you will observe, is your imagination, your mindset, your mind, y'all. The imagination is both interpretive and creative in nature. It can examine facts, concepts, and ideas, and it can create new combinations and plans out of these. Through its interpretive capacity, the imagination has one power not generally attributed to it, namely the power to register vibrations and thought waves that are put into motion from outside sources, just as the radio receiving apparatus picks up the vibrations of sound. The principle through which this interpretive capacity of the imagination functions is called telepathy, the communication of thought from one mind to another at long or short distances without the aid of physical or mechanical appliances, in the manner explained in the introductory lesson of this course. Telepathy is an important factor to a student who is preparing to make effective use of imagination, for the reason that this telepathic capacity of the imagination is constantly picking up thought waves and vibrations of every description. So-called snap judgment and hunches, which promote one to form an opinion or decide upon a course of action that is not in harmony with logic or reason, are usually the result of stray thought waves that have registered in the imagination. The recently developed radio apparatus has enabled us to understand that the elements of the ether are so sensitive and alive that all manner of sound waves are constantly flying here and there with lightning-like speed. You have only to understand the modern radio outfit to understand also the principle of telepathy. So well has this principle been established through psychological research that we have abundance of proof that two minds which are properly attuned and in harmony with each other may send and receive thought as long as distances without the aid of mechanical apparatus of any sort. Rarely have two minds become so well attuned that unbroken chains of thought could be registered in this manner. But there is evidence sufficient to establish the fact that parts of organized thought have been picked up. That you may understand how closely interwoven are 15 factors upon which this reading course is based. Consider, for example, what happens when the salesman who lacks confidence in himself and in his goods walks in to see a prospective buyer. Whether the prospective buyer is conscious of it or not, his imagination immediately senses the lack of confidence in the salesman's mind. And I've been there before, so I understand exactly what this is saying. You can pick up on those things. The salesman's own thoughts are actually undermining his efforts. This will explain from another angle why self-confidence is one of the most important factors entering into the great struggle for success. The principle of telepathy and the law of attraction, through which like attracts like, explains many a failure. If the mind has a tendency to attract from the ether those thought vibrations which harmonize with dominating thoughts of a given mind, you can easily understand why a negative mind that dwells upon failure and lacks the vitalizing force of self-confidence will not attract a positive mind that is dominated by thoughts of success. Perhaps these explanations are somewhat abstract to the student who has not made any particular study of the functioning processes of the mind, but it seems necessary to inject them into this lesson as a means of enabling the student to understand and make practical use of the subject of this lesson. Let me get some water, y'all. The imagination is too often regarded merely as an infinite or indefinite, untraceable, indescribable, something that does nothing but create fiction. It is this popular disregard of the powers of the imagination that has made necessary these more or less abstract references to one of the most important subjects of this course. I need to set this book on something. Hold on, y'all. I'm trying to get this set up because this way I'm going to bend my head down and it's hurting my neck, y'all. Hold on. Goodness gracious. Okay. But it is one of those most interesting subjects, as you will observe when you begin to see how it affects all that you do toward the achievement of your definite chief aim. You will see how important is the subject of imagination when you stop to realize that it is the only thing in the world over which you have absolute control. Others may deprive you of your material wealth and cheat you in thousands of ways, but no man can deprive you of the control and use of your imagination. That is the truth. Men may deal with Men may deal with you unfairly, as men often do. They may deprive you of your liberty, but they cannot take from you the privilege of using your imagination as you wish. The most inspiring poem in all literature was written by Leigh Hunt, which while he was a poverty-stricken prisoner in an English prison, where he had been unjustly confined because of his advanced views on politics. This poem is entitled A Bow or Bow, I don't know, Ben Adem, I guess. It is here reprinted as a reminder that one of the great things a man may do in his own imagination is to forgive those who have dealt unjustly with him. Abu bin Adem, and in parentheses it says, may his tribe increase, awoke one night from a deep dream of peace and saw within the moonlight of his room, making it rich and like a lily in bloom, an angel writing in the book of gold. Exceeding peace has made Ben Adem bold. Into the presence in this room he said, what writest thou? The vision raised its head, and with a look made all of sweet accord, answered, the names of those who love the Lord. And is mine one? Said Abu. Nay, not so, replied the angel. Abu spoke more low, but cheerily still, and said, I pray thee then, write me as one that loves his fellow men. The angel wrote and vanished. The next night it came again with the great awakening light, and showed the names whom love of God had blessed. And lo, Ben Adem's name led all the rest. I like that. Civilization itself owes its existence to such men as Leigh Hunt, in whose fertile imaginations have been pictured the higher and nobler standards of human relationship. Abu bin Adem is a poem that will never die, thanks to this man who pictured in his imagination the hope of an ideal that is constructive. The major trouble with this world today lies in our lack of understanding of the power of imagination. For if we understood this great power, we could use it as a weapon with which to wipe out poverty and misery and injustice and persecution. And this could be done in a single generation. This is rather broad. This is a rather broad statement, and one who understands. Whoa, shoot! I dropped the pillow, y'all. Hold on, y'all. Goodness gracious, I'm trying to hold this thing up so it won't be too. Next time I'll think more into this. I guess I'll put it that way. There we go. This is rather a broad statement, and no one understands better than the author of this course how, unless such a statement would be, if principle, would. How, unless such a statement would be, if the principle upon which it is founded were not explained in terms of the most practical, workday nature. Therefore, let us proceed to describe what is meant. To make this description understandable, we must accept as a reality the principle of telepathy, through the operation of which every thought we release is registering itself in the minds of other people. We need devote no time to proving that telepathy is a reality, for the reason that this lesson on imagination cannot be the slightest value to the student who has not sufficiently informed himself to understand and accept telepathy as an established principle. We will take it for granted that you are one who accepts and understands this principle. You have often heard of mob psychology, which is nothing more nor less than some strong dominating idea that has been created in the mind of one or more persons and registers itself in the mind of other persons through the principle of telepathy. So strong is the power of mob psychology that two men fighting in the street will often start a free-for-all fight in which bystanders will engage each other in battle without even knowing what they're fighting about or with whom they're fighting. And I have seen that, so that is therefore now I can see what he's saying. That is definitely true. On Armistice Day, 1918, we had evidence in abundance to prove the reality of the principle of telepathy on a scale such as the world has never before witnessed. I remember distinctly the impression made in my mind on that eventful day. So strong was this impression that it awakened me at about 3 o'clock in the morning, just as effectively as if someone had aroused me by physical force. As I sat up in bed, I knew that something out of the ordinary had happened. So strange and impelling was the effect of this experience that I got up, dressed myself, and went out into the streets of Chicago, where I met thousands of others who had felt the touch of the same influence. Everyone was asking what happened. What had happened was this: millions of men had received instructions to cease fighting, and their combined joy set into motion a thought wave that swept the entire world and made itself felt in every normal mind that was capable of registering that thought wave. Perhaps never in the history of the world have so many millions of people thought of the same thing in the same manner at the same time. For once in the history of the world, everybody felt something in common, and the effects of this harmonized thought was the worldwide mob psychology that we witnessed on Armistice Day. In connection with this statement, it will be helpful if you recall what was said about the method of creating a mastermind. Ah, that was the first lesson. Through the harmony of thought of two or more persons in the introductory lesson of this course. Yes, it was. We will bring the application of this principle a little nearer home by showing how it may be made to make or break the harmonious working relationship of a business or industry. You may not have satisfied yourself that it was the harmony of thought of millions of soldiers that registered in the minds of the people and caused the mob psychology condition that was elsewhere in evidence on Armistice Day. But you will need no proof that a disgruntled person always disturbs everyone with whom he comes in contact. It is well established that it is a well established fact that one such person in a place of employment will disrupt the entire organization, and that is true. I have seen it many and many times. The time is almost at hand when neither the workers nor the employers will tolerate the typical grouch inside of a place of employment, for the reason that his state of mind registers itself in the minds of those about him, resulting in distrust, suspicion, and lack of harmony. The time is near at hand when the workers in a place of employment will no more tolerate one of their own rank and file who is a typical grouch than they would a poisonous snake. Apply the principle in another way. Place among a group of workers one person whose personality is positive, optimistic type, and who makes it his business to sow the seeds of harmony around the place where he works, and his influence will reflect itself in every person who works with him. If every business is the extended shadow of one man, as Emerson stated, then it behooves that one man to reflect the shadow of confidence and good cheer as optimism and harmony, that these qualities may in turn reflect themselves in all who are connected with the business. In passing to the next step in our application of the power of imagination, in the attainment of success, we will cite some of the most recent and modern examples of its use in the accumulation of material wealth and the perfection of some of the leading inventions of the world. In approaching this next step, it should be borne in mind that there is nothing new under the sun, and we've heard that, I'm sure, thousands of times. Life on this earth may be likened to a great kaleidoscope, before which the scenes of fact and material substances are ever shifting and changing. And all any man can do is to take these facts and substances and rearrange them in new combinations. The process through which this is done is called imagination. We have stated that the imagination is both interpretive and creative in its nature. It can receive impressions or ideas, and out of these, it can form new combinations. As our first illustration of the power of imagination is in modern business achievement, we will take the case of Clarence Saunders, who organized the Piggly Wiggly system of self-help grocery stores. Saunders was a grocery clerk at a small southern retail store. One day he was standing in line with a tray in his hands, waiting his turn to secure food in the cafeteria. He had never earned more than $20 a week before that time, and no one had ever noticed anything about him that indicated unusual ability. But something took place in his mind. As he stood in that line of waiting people, that put his imagination to work. With the aid of his imagination, he lifted that self-help idea out of the cafeteria in which he founded it, not creating anything new, merely shifting an old idea into a new use, and set it down in a grocery store. In an instant, the Piggly Wiggly chain store grocery plan had been created, and Clarence Saunders, the $20 a week clerk, rapidly became the $1 million chain store grocery man of America. That is awesome, y'all. I didn't know his name. Charles, so Clarence Saunders. Where in the transaction do you see the slightest indication of a performance that you could not duplicate? Analyze this transaction and measure it by the previous lessons of this course, and you will see that Clarence Saunders created a definite purpose. He supported this purpose with sufficient self confidence to cause him to take the initiative to transform it into reality. His imagination was the workshop in which these three factors, definite purpose, self confidence, and initiative, were brought together and made to supply the momentum for the first step in the organization of the Piggly Wiggly plan. Thus, the great ideas change into realities. Sorry about that, y'all. Okay, I want to make sure I'm still on track because I got to get to work this morning. When Thomas A. Edison invented the incandescent electric light bulb, he merely brought together two old well-known principles and associated them in a new combination. Mr. Edison and practically all others who were informed on the subject of electricity knew that a light could be produced by heating a small wire with electricity. But the difficult problem was to do this without burning the wire in two. In his experimental research, Mr. Edison tried out every conceivable sort of wire, hoping to find some substance that would withstand the tremendous heat to which it had to be subjected before a light could be produced. His invention was half completed, but it was of no practical value until he could find the missing link that would supply the other half. After thousands of tests and much combing of old ideas in his imagination, Edison finally found the missing link. In his studies of physics, he learned, as all other students of the subject learned, that there can be no combustion without the presence of oxygen. He, of course, knew that the difficulty with his electric light apparatus was the lack of a method through which to control the heat. When it occurred to him that there could be no combustion where there was no oxygen, he placed the little wire of his electric light apparatus inside a glass globe, shut out all the oxygen, and lo, the mighty incandescent light was a reality. When the sun goes down tonight, you step to the wall, press a button, and bring it back again. A presence that would have mystified the people of a few generations ago, and yet there is no mystery back of your act. Thanks to the use of Edison's imagination, you have simply brought together two principles of which were in existence since the beginning of time. No one who knew him intimately ever accredited Andrew Carnegie with the unusual ability or power of genius, except in one respect. That was his ability to select men who could and would operate in a spirit of harmony in carrying out his wishes. But what additional ability did he need in the accumulation of his millions of dollars? Any man who understands the principle of organized effort, as Carnegie understood it, and knows enough about men to be able to select just those types that are needed in the performance of a given task, could duplicate all that Carnegie accomplished. Carnegie was a man of imagination. He first created a definite purpose and then surrounded himself with men who had the training and the vision and the capacity necessary for the transformation of that purpose into reality. Carnegie did not always create his plans for the attainment of his definite purpose. He made it his business to know what he wanted and then found the men who could create the plans which to procure it. Smart. And that was not the only imagination, it was genius of the highest order. And y'all, I know I said this gonna be 2 parts. It may be 3 parts because I'm nowhere near page 16 or 15 or anything. So, but I'll keep reading, y'all. It may be 3 parts just to let y'all know. But it should be made clear that men of Carnegie's type are not the only ones who can make profitable use of imagination. This great power is as available to the beginner in business as it is to the man who arrived. One morning, Charles M. Schwab, private car, was back on the side track at the Bethlehem steel plant. As he alighted from his car, he was met by a young man stenographer who announced that he had come to make sure that any letters of telegrams that Mr. Schwab might wish to write would be taken care of promptly. No one told this young man to be on hand, but he had enough imagination to see that being there would not hurt his chances of advancement. From that day on, this young man was marked for promotion. Mr. Schwab singled him out for promotion because he had done that which any of the dozen or so stenographers in the employ of the Bethlehem Steel Company might have done, but didn't. Today, this same man is the president of one of the largest drug concerns in the world and has all of the world's goods and wares that he wants and much more than he needs. A few years ago, I received a letter from a young man who had just finished business college and who wanted to secure employment in my office. With his letter, he sent a crisp $10 bill that had never been folded. The letter read as follows: I have just finished a commercial course in a first class business college, and I want a position in your office because I realize how much it would be worth to a young man just starting out on his career to have the privilege of working under the direction of a man like you. If the enclosed $10 bill is sufficient to pay for the time you would spend in giving me my first week's instruction, I want to accept it. Wow. Diligent. It will work. I will work the first month without pay, and you may set my wages after that at whatever I prove to be worth. I want this job more than I ever wanted anything in my life, and I'm willing to make any reasonable sacrifice to get it. Very cordially. Wow. This young man got his chance in my office. His imagination gained for him the opportunity he wanted. Before his first month had expired, the president of a life insurance company who heard of this incident offered this young man a private secretaryship at a substantial salary. He is today an official of one of the largest life insurance companies in the world. Imagination, y'all, get you somewhere. Some years ago, a young man wrote to Thomas Edison for a position. For some reason, Mr. Edison did not reply. By no means discouraged on his account, this young man made up in his mind that he would not only get a reply from Mr. Edison, but what was more important still, he would actually secure the position he sought. He lived a long distance from West Orange, New Jersey, where the Edison Industries are located. Excuse me, y'all, I had to yawn. This is making me sleepy. Lord, have you ever read a book for a long time? This seemed like a long time to me. It's been actually it's almost 30 minutes, so it's been a long time. Oh, goodness. But this man did have imagination. He went to West Orange in a freight car, got his interview, told his story in person, and got the job he sought. Today, that man lives in Bradenton, Florida. He has retired from active business, having made all the money he needs. His name, in case you wish to confirm my statements, is Edwin C. Barnes. By using his imagination, Mr. Barnes saw the advantage of close association with a man like Thomas Edison. He saw that an association would give him the opportunity to study Mr. Edison. And at the same time, it would bring him in contact with Mr. Edison's friends, who are among the most influential people in the world. These are but a few cases in connection with which I have personally observed how men have climbed to high places in the world and accumulated wealth and abundance by making practical use of their imagination. And that's giving me some thoughts of imagination as well while I'm reading this. Theodore Roosevelt engraved his name on the tables of time by one single act during his tenure of office as President of the United States. And after all else that he did while in that office will have been forgotten, this one transaction will record him in history as a man of imagination. He started the steam shovels to work on the Panama Canal. Every president from Washington on up to Roosevelt could have started the canal and it would have been completed. But it seemed such a colossal undertaking that it required not only imagination but daring courage as well. Roosevelt had both, and the people of the United States had the canal. At the age of 40, the age at which the average man begins to think he is too old to start anything new, I thought the same. James J. Hill was still sitting at the telegraph key at a salary of $30 per month. He had no capital. He had no influential friends with capital, but he did have that which is more powerful than any than either imagination. Than either imagination. In his mind's eye, he saw a great railway system that would penetrate the underdeveloped Northwest and unite the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. So vivid was his imagination that he made others see the advantages of such a railway system. And from there on, the story is familiar enough to every schoolboy. I would emphasize that part of the story that most people never mention, that Hill's great northern railway system became a reality in his own imagination first. The railroad was built with steel rails and wooden cross ties, just as other railroads are built. And these things were paid for with capital that was secured in very much the same manner that capital for all railroads was secured. But if you want the real story of James J. Hill's success, you must go back to that little country railway system or station, Lord, y'all, where he worked at $30 a month and there pick up the little threads that he wove into a mighty railroad with materials no more visible than the thoughts which he organized in his imagination. And y'all, I'm going to stop there because we're at almost 32 minutes. So I'm going to stop there. Like I said, this is chapter number 6 of the book. This is part number 1. Chapter number 6, The Law of Success in 16 Lessons by Napoleon Hill. And like I said, I'm reading this book to y'all. I was actually giving you all summaries at first. So the first 5 chapters of this or lessons of this, you'll find it here on my YouTube and, of course, my podcast, The Social Worker Coach. You'll find those summaries on there. I did not read them word for word, but now I'm reading it word for word. So like I said, this is part number 1 of the chapter number 6 or lesson number 6 of imagination. I'm going to end it here, y'all, because like I said, we're at 32 minutes now. So, and I got to get myself moving because I got to get to work this morning. So with that, I want to say thank y'all. And like I said, there's going to be a link in the description of this video you see on YouTube and on the podcast on Spotify at The Social Worker Coach. Make sure that you all are subscribing, of course, to my channels, to the pages, to follow me, to see what's going on, that type of thing. Because I post videos, of course, on YouTube all the time. So just about every day, actually. So make sure that y'all are definitely subscribing to this channel. And, of course, sharing this video out with those who may, of course, enjoy this particular book. Like I said, it's The Law of Success in 16 Lessons by Napoleon Hill. And this is all about, to me, mindset and, of course, business. And, of course, making money. I guess I put it that way as well. So with that, y'all, I'm going to say thank you all for listening. Peace out. Have a great day. I'll see y'all in the next part of chapter 6. Peace out, y'all, and have a good one.